Hello Flosstube and welcome back to another video. I'm Ros Clark. This is Ros Clark Craft here on YouTube, and I'm also on Etsy and on Instagram. So how are you all doing? It's nice to be back after a couple of weeks. It's been a busy couple of weeks and I thought I'd done no stitching at all. I haven't done loads, it has to be said. I haven't done loads, but I have done some. So I've got a couple of finishes to show you, fully finished objects, go me. A couple of things that I'm working on and a couple of purchases to show you, which I don't normally do, but these are just really interesting. I'm going to call them book reviews. So they're not really just haul, it's a review. I'm just going to apologise for the lighting right now. It is late afternoon, early evening here. I tried it without any extra light and it was really dark and shadowy. So I've got my ring light on, but obviously my ring light, in order for it to have any useful purpose, ends up reflecting on my glasses and then it looks super weird. It feels like the least worst option of all the ones that I tried, but it's not a great option and I apologise. So that's why if you see me kind of slightly holding my head in funny angles, it's because of the ring light, but then it's also slightly in shadow. So I apologise for that. Right, here we go. So finishes. So you'll remember, hopefully, I was working on Funky Bird. This is a Barbara Anna design. The chart comes with a sort of an alphabet section up here, but I knew I didn't want to stitch that. I've done my own colour conversion to make the colours a bit lighter and brighter, a bit springier. I feel like this looks much more like a spring flower. I think I do like the colours that I chose. I think probably I could have gone down on this outline colour and made that even less dark. So the original, I think, has it as a black, and I've done it in this dark teal that is bejeweled. These are all pretty much classic colourworks, I think. I can't remember all of the colours I used, but I'm pretty sure that dark teal was bejeweled, which is a beautiful, beautiful colour. I think I might have lightened that down. And then I can't remember, this is Blackbird or Black Coffee maybe, and actually I think I should have not used that at all, but anyway I did. And I wanted to make it into a little pillow. I knew I had not huge amounts but some of this linen left, and I thought, well, it'd be nice to have two slightly coordinating things. So I was looking around for other designs. I was like, do I want another bird or something else? And I was like, no, I think what I want is another Barbara Anna design. So this is from Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher magazine. I have the digital subscription, which comes with the digital archive. And so this was from 2 or 3 years ago, I think, one of the spring editions. The actual design also has like a heart around it with motifs in it. But I just thought, actually, as a little pillow on its own, there's a pair of little rabbits and the flowers and the key. And I used exactly the same colour palette as I did for the birds. So they're on the same fabric and they're using some of the same threads. Obviously, there are more threads in this one than in this one. So I stitched them and I knew I wanted to make them into a little pair of pillows. So I went to my sewing room and I found this, which seemed like a sort of coordinating but not detracting fabric. You can see it's got a sort of leaf pattern on it. And for the back, I did both of them in the same gingham, green gingham for the back. And then I don't know why I got this trim or when I bought it or what I thought I might use it. It's absolutely bonkers. It is like an eyelash trim, but it's like 1 inch wide. And it is not the easiest thing to stitch with. I will just throw that out there. But also it's quite forgiving in the sense that, you know, it's like stitching with fake fur. What you can kind of pull the bits out of the seams relatively easily if they get caught. And I didn't think this was absolutely the most sensible way of doing it, but anyway, I machined the pillow and then I machined the trim to the back of the pillow. And so on the front of the pillow, it's got this sort of almost like an Oxford pillowcase look to it. It's a bit weird. I was like, it's not perfect. I'm not doing it again. So that one, and then this one, I just put the trim sort of in between the stitched piece and the background fabric. This one I like to think of as grass skirt, and this one is bird in the grass. So grass skirt, bird in the grass. They're both Barbara Anna. This one's Funky Bird. This one is Spring in My Heart. Yeah, I'm really pleased with them. They make me smile when I look at them. The green is just bonkers, and I like that. And you know, it sort of goes with the bonkers bird and the bonkers little stitch thing there. So I'm pleased with them. I'm keeping up with my fully finished object challenge, FFO challenge 2023, that's being hosted by Michelle from Penny's Daughter Shares and Jen Quilter. You can do that. There are people doing that in all sorts of ways. You set your own challenge, and mine is just to finish things when they are finished. When I'm finished stitching them, do the fully finished so they don't sit around. So I was really pleased with that. I finished this one, I think, like the day after I filmed my last Flosstube, and start and finish this one on the same day because it's super small, particularly if you miss out most of the chart, which I did. I had been contemplating, and I still am sort of contemplating, not renewing my Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher subscription. I've had it for a year. I think you pay for a year at a time for the digital subscription. And I don't think it automatically renews. It's a good magazine. It is a really good magazine. I did do a review of it here on the channel, and perhaps I'll put a link to that below. I was curious when I first looked at it, because I was just like, I'm not really a primitive stitcher. Is there going to be anything in my style? And when I started looking at it, and I was like, oh, actually, it's not all as primitive as I thought it would be. And there are definitely things in there that I might stitch, but then I'd never stitched any of them. So I'm like, oh, I'm not really sure it's really worth having it, even if there are things I might stitch and then I don't stitch. But then I stitched this. So now I'm like, oh, maybe I should keep it then. I mean, I like it. It's quarterly. It's not overwhelming. I do wish it weren't punch needle and cross stitching, because quite often I look at the punch needle designs and think, oh, that's lovely. And then I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing punch needle. I do not need another craft that I do badly. I have enough of those already. So yeah, so you feel like you're only really getting half a magazine for your money unless you do both crafts. But you know, there's a fair amount in there. They are usually smalls, not always, but usually they are smalls. And I like stitching smalls. So I should just stitch more of them, and then I don't need to have a existential angst about why am I still getting this magazine. That's probably the answer. Good. So I've been stitching on 2 other things. Like I say, it's not been a lot. I've been away a fair bit and doing things and haven't had loads of time. I am keeping up with my Tulips and Stars. This is for Yasmin's Made with Love, the Yas Marathon Sal. It's one of her charity charts. If you want to know more about that, the hashtag is on Instagram, Yas Marathon Sal, or you could go and check out any of her videos where she talks about the charity she's running for MenCap. And the goal of this is to finish the chart on the day she's running the London Marathon. I'm stitching mine on, I think it's 18 count Ada in Sage. I think this is just Vigart Ada in the colourway Sage. And I'm stitching it using Sulky Blendables. So that makes it really easy to stitch. So far I've used 4 colours. I've chosen a whole lot of sort of tulipy kind of colours to make it feel very spring-like. So all the lettering will be in this darker red and purple, but then everything else is going to be in very bright tulipy kind of colours. And I've been enjoying, it's not like brilliantly planned pooling, but I've been enjoying playing a little bit with the pooling and so on. And I really like the pink and the sort of yellowy lime green on the inside of this motif. So that is the sort of first 2 parts. I divided it into 8, and we finished week 2, we're on week 3, so I need to start. Week 3 is going to be like the central flower here, and then the 2 sort of tulip heads either side of that. There are 2 letters as well, there's the M and the N, and I might try and get those done this week as well. So that's Tulips and Stars by Tulips and Stars from Yasmin's Made with Love. One more little look at that. It's really fun. It's really easy to stitch. Doing it on the Ada makes it super easy. Doing it with sulky, so you've got one strand at a time. Yeah, it's a really good thing for if you're tired or if you're on your go. It's a very portable project. Yeah, it's really fun. I'm glad to be stitching that. And then the other thing I've been stitching, I finally started Here in the Woods from Cottage Garden Samplings, Jack Rabbit. So this is my March hare is what I'm calling this. Jack rabbits are basically hares. And so I'm stitching this in March, and it is my March hare. So I think last time I was like, oh, I've got a fun fact about that, and then I never told you the fun fact. So some years ago, I was writing entries for a Bible dictionary. So Bible dictionary is it's like a dictionary of words in the Bible and their meanings that they have in the Bible, which may not be quite the same as their meanings in ordinary language. So often it will be things like the names or the places, or, you know, explaining the sort of flora and fauna of the landscape, or, you know, explaining ancient Israelite terms for furniture or how they built the house, all sorts of stuff. Anyway, my list was at the beginning of R. So I just had a whole list of words starting, I can't remember what the first one was, but it might well have been rabbi, and, you know, went all the way down. Anyway, it had rabbit on the list, and I looked in my Bible, and you can get lists of all the words that are in the Bible. You have to do this manually anymore. And I had a software program that did that. So I put rabbit in to see where rabbit came up, and there were no results. So I emailed the editor and said, look, I don't quite know why this is in the list, because there are no rabbits in the Bible. Should I just leave it out? And he was like, oh no, you should include it for reasons which I won't explain. I'm like, okay, right, good. I don't really know what to write here. So there is this Bible dictionary out there which has an entry for rabbit, and literally the first line of it goes, there are no rabbits in the Bible. But actually, the reason why I was there is because in some older English translations, there was a word that they translated rabbit, but actually later now we think probably it wasn't a rabbit, it was a jackrabbit or a hare. So that's what I explained. Anyway, that was more than you ever needed to know about rabbits in the Bible. There are no cats in the Bible. There are lions, but there are no cats. Anyway, so I've started this, but it's all a bit of a sad tale. I'll show you my progress because it's looking nice, I think. I mean, I'm not displeased with the actual stitching. So I have changed the colourway to make it more actually realistic, which is very unlike me. But you can see the pattern has got this sort of bluish steel grey to it, and I don't dislike it. But when I was thinking about colours for mine, I was like, I think I am just going to go for like more browns. But you can see I've kept the orange inside the ear, and this sort of paler colour here is quite pinkish, and I think that's looking pretty. So it's going to be nice. Now, the problem is, I thought this was 36 count, and it's not, it's 32 count. And honestly, for the finish that I really wanted to do with this, I probably should have done it on 40 count. So 36 count might have worked, 32 count is not going to work. It's basically, it's going to be too big. I wanted to make this into a book cover, and I've got a book. I've got 2 copies of The Wind in the Willows, one of which was my grandmother's and one of which was my grandfather's. And I was going to take my I think it's my grandfather's was the one that I was going to take, and I was going to use this to cover the book. It's going to be too big. I'm pretty confident it's going to be too big. And even if it's not too big, I just think these bigger stitches are going to be too fragile. It's not like it's a book that's going to get used a lot, but nonetheless, you'll put it on the shelf, it'll rub against stuff. I'm doing this 1/2 on 32 count, which actually I quite like. I mean, it's not great coverage, but I think with the colour of the fabric that's showing through, I actually think it works all right. So I'm not changing that, but you can see a little bit there that the coverage is not perfect. This is Fox and Rabbit ballet slippers. It is a beautiful colour. It is absolutely, I mean, you're not going to be able to see it here, but many of you will have seen a ballet slippers at some point. It is that sort of ballet pink, which isn't really pink. It's sort of like a peachy, I mean, when I say skin colour, I mean skin colour of people whose skin is this colour. But that's sort of the aim of it. And, you know, nobody's skin is pink. People's skin, you know, white people's skin isn't white. It's this sort of flesh colour. It's not quite my flesh colour, but anyway, it's a very lovely colour, is what I'm trying to say. And I think it works really nicely as the background for this brown version of the jackrabbit. So I'm just going to keep going, I think, but I'm a bit sad because I bought this with a specific project in mind, and I've sort of been putting it off for a year to stitch it because I was scared of getting it wrong, and I'm doing it wrong. So I don't know, it's not the end of the world. I don't know quite what I will do with this when it's finished. Maybe it will just go up on the wall and that'll be fine. Oh no, I had an idea. I did have a different idea of how I might finish it. So I think, given that it's not going to be the project I thought it was going to be anyway, I think I'm going to not do the flowers and the house in the background. I'm just going to do the jackrabbit. And then I think I do have a different finishing idea. So we'll see. And then, you know, I'd love to do a book cover again someday. So I will be looking for patterns that might work for that. But it's not going to be this one. So that is all the stitching that there is. There is going to be other stitching in March. I have got, I need to do at least one model stitch. I'm not going to commit to which one I'm going to do, but I do need to do at least one, really, just to kind of keep up with things that I've got in mind and when I would like to be able to release them. So I've got some Christmas designs that I want to try and release in May or June to be ready for Christmas in July. I've got the final one in the Fierce Ladies series, which is going to go here. And I've got the next one in the Medieval Menagerie series. So I'd certainly like to have all of those done by the summer. Plus there'll be the summer Union Jack. Plus I've got two other super secret projects that I can't tell you about. Both of which are quite small, thankfully. But they also need to be done by the summer. So that's 3 Christmas. Like 8 models that I need to stitch by the summer. That's quite a lot. Anyway, so I do need to keep up with that. So I want to do that. And then I have also got an idea for the pay it forward things that I promised. I offered earlier this year to do like a pay it forward gift, a bit like a smalls exchange, but rather than an exchange, you just send stuff out and then people who receive make their own pay it forward offer and they send stuff out. And so, you know, you never know when you might get something, but also you get to send out lovely things, which I like. That's the bit of the exchange I like best, is I like thinking about the other people and what they might like and sending things to them. And I have a really good idea. It's probably going to be April. April is a lot quieter for me than the first few months of this year have been. I've only got one thing in the diary that means I have to be away. So yeah, I'm hoping, and I've got a couple of weeks off, so I'm hoping there'll be quite a lot of stitching in April. That is all there is for the moment. I've got a couple of other things I do want to show you. So these are my book reviews. I've been massively enabled by Deborah of Kensington Cross Stitch. I mentioned her last time and I'll mention it again. Do go and look at her video on how to buy cross stitch designs from continental European designers. I'm not going to go through that. I'm just going to show you the things that I have bought. So first of all, this is from Ulrika Blotzheim of UB Design. That's her there. And I bought this via what's it called? Casa Cinina? I can't remember. I might have got that wrong. I will put that in the description box below. Anyway, and that's a really good website. You can set it to show you everything in English, and you will find there French designers, Italian designers, German designers, probably others as well. So it's a good place to have a look for things. So this one is called Meine kleine Wohnung. It's German, which I think means like my little house or my little place where I live. And I think it's really interesting the way it's done. you couldn't see from the website everything that you would get in this, and that is a thing with books, is you don't often get to see all the things in them. So I am going to try and show you through that. So there you've got a little interior scene, the chair, the lamp, the telephone stand, the plant stand, the picture on the wall, and that heart-shaped hanging. Really pretty. Now let me show you on the other page. That is the same chair, but done in a different way. So just the chair with some words, and then finished with those little hanging bits of thing. Here there's a different vase with some flowers in it, and I'm not quite sure what that is, but anyway, there's sort of two hearts sort of hanging from something. And then a different little plant pot there. The words are in German. So one of them says alles gut, alles Liebe, so everything good, everything lovely, or all is good, all is lovely. Zum verdienten Ruhestand. No idea. Obviously, you don't have such words. But now, look at this. So this is the sort of next page. And it's an even bigger interior scene, but it's got repeated elements. So the chair is the same, the lamp is the same, the phone stand, the plant stand, but then it's got bookshelf on either side and this extra sort of console table and a mirror and a chandelier and another piece of it, and the shoes. And I really like this. What you actually get are lots and lots of different elements and then ways that you can put them together. One of the things I really like, but I don't know if you can really see it, these pictures are over one. So they give the illusion of being the right scale for pictures by virtue of being stitched over one. Here is where you get information about the threads. And you can see, I don't know if you can see, it gives you the DMC numbers as well as something from V&H Garn, and then DMC, and then anchor. So that's easy, and it will show you for each thing, this tells you how many skeins of each one that you need. So yes, I'm just going to show you this little bit at the top here. So this is the beginning of the chart. But you see how it's got that whole big picture, and then each of the elements, each page has got a number on it showing you how those things go together. And the thread numbers are indicated on each page. You've got a whole alphabet there, backstitch alphabet, so you could change the words. Obviously you could change them to English if you wanted to. Okay, lots and lots of charts, all the different bits. But here, so again, a different scene from the one we saw at the beginning, but different ways of putting some of the same elements together. But you do get all of that charted separately. You don't just have to do your own arranging of things on the page. These two really pretty plants on stands with hanging, again charted as they appear in those pictures. So what these are called, they're variegations. I'm not going to show you, but there's a chart here which has got all of the over one stitching, and then how you might use some of those over one. This was the chart that is the picture on the wall, but also here you can see it's just stitched on its own and then used to make a card topper with a little heart there, or one of the little plants there. So I'm really enjoying it. I like that it's thoughtful in the way that you can use the designs to create your own unique variation of them. There's lots of ways you could personalize it. There's a lot of things you could do with it. So I thought that was really interesting. I'm not sure how much of it I will actually stitch. It's not quite as much my style as I thought it was going to be, but I'm not sad that I bought it. I'm really interested to have seen that. And she's certainly a designer that I would look out for again. And I think you could really have fun taking elements from these designs and putting them together in a way that suits you. Yeah, or extracting them to make smaller designs or whatever. I think it really encourages you to have fun with it in that sort of way. Yeah, so that's UB Designs. There we go. Let's not have my finger over it and not have the light shining on it. UB Designs. She's got her own website on the back. And I will put those in the description box below. So that was interesting. Now this, I bought this from Amazon. So this is easy to get hold of, but it is in French. And as far as I know, there isn't an English translation of it available. So this is Monochrome et Camille from Hélène Lebert. She's French. And what I'm going to do with this is I am going to show you all the things inside of it. Like I say, it is in French, but, you know, they're cross-stitch charts. How much information? It's a really beautifully produced book. Proper hardback, proper nice paper. All the charts are at the back, so I'm just going to talk you through the book. So you can see there's a little bit here in French. My French is not brilliant. I have a little bit of French, but not loads. If I wanted to know what all of that said, I have Google. I could look it up. I'll tell you a little bit. It's I mean, obviously, the design is a dandelion being blown into the wind. And so there's a little bit that's, I think, a sort of description of the design. And then this second section here, these vary. Some of these are little poems or stories or craft projects, or telling you, I think this is telling us about the it's the flower of childhood because of, you know, blowing away the things basically. And it's also telling us, obviously, that's how the plant pollinates. Anyway, so monochrome and cameo, these are either single colour designs or tonal designs, but you can see here there's two colours to represent the dandelion there. I think it's super pretty. Bouquet of roses. Again, tonal, but with a contrast. I think that contrast is too strong. I would do that ribbon in a paler colour. Even a paler grey, I think, would be perfect for that. Again, none of these are huge designs, but they're not all what you'd call small. I think that's lovely. That snow scene on the sort of charcoal grey fabric. Really beautiful. Carrot. I think Deborah said she was doing this one, and I totally see why. I think it's absolutely lovely. I think it would also work if you wanted to do a green for the leaves and the stem. I think that would also look fabulous, but I like it in the orange. Fern leaf. Beautiful. Really beautiful. Yeah, it's got two skeins of flosser, but it is all stitched in one colour. They've also got a number of projects through the book that show you finishing ideas. So this is if you wanted to do the fern and then make it into a tote bag. Cats. You could choose to do that in more realistic cat-like colours. You could just pick one of those cats or a number of those cats. Yeah, I probably won't stitch that because cats are not really my thing, but they're nicely observed little cats, I think. I really want to do these. This is called Cabinet de Curiosité, Curiosity Cabinet. And just look at those. Hannah Cornish, if you're watching this, I feel like this is absolutely up your alley. Yeah. And this is one where, in addition to the sort of design, there's other ways shown of finishing it. So you might take out individual insects or groups of insects and frame them. That would be a fun project. Le Paillon Blanc. Peacock. White peacock. Stunning. Really stunning. and really delicate and beautiful. Le baleine à fanon. I don't know which bits of those, but it's a whale spouting up its thing. Something here about the adventures of Moby Dick. That's all I've got for you. Il était une fois. Il était une fois. So this is one where we've got a little story about the fox and the flamingo. I don't know the story of the fox and the flamingo, but they do, and then made up into a cushion. This one's very pretty, simplerish. This is called Cadre aux Tulipes. So you see the tulips there around the edge, and then the windmill, and then the sort of countryside scene. I don't know if she's feeding the cow or milking the cow. But anyway, the representation of the tulips and the sheep, okay, probably not milking them then, evokes the spring and Dutch colours of red and pink, maybe? Yeah, Dutch threads of red and pink. There we go. Look at this one. I think that's glorious. Tree house with swings and towers and birds and ladders, and I mean that would be so pretty, and turrets. For a child's bedroom, I think that would be so lovely. So lovely. But, you know, I mean, not just for a child. Why do all children get all the best things? They don't. Il pleut, no, sous la pluie. Sous la pluie, in the rain. Also glorious for a child's bedroom. I love that. I love that. You can just feel the movement of that splashing as they're stamping in the puddle with their wellies. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely lovely. And like spotty Wellingtons. So pretty. So this is Leda and the Swan. Not huge contrast between the thread and the fabric colours, and I think I would probably give it just a little bit more push. Yeah, but very pretty. There's a little bit of back stitch in some of these, or straight stitch, but basically they're all full crosses, I think. Christmas tree. Again, you might want to do that in slightly different colours. I would probably put the children in the darker green or in some other darker colour, but beautiful. You could make that one into a toy sack, ready for Father Christmas. Now this is the one I do want to start with. I think this is so lovely. So lovely. Nécessaire à broder. Things for stitching, and so you've got here obviously the frame with the sort of stitching attached to it. You've got scissors and the spool and the needle, and then she's holding her stitching, and yeah, little thimble at the top. I just love everything about that, except possibly, I don't know if you can see, there's a little cherub in the white at the top. I might leave him out. I'm not a huge fan of cherubs. But I also think I will take that spool, possibly with the bird on top or possibly not, and stitch that on its own as well. I want to do a little set of sewing themed smalls, and I think that would be a beautiful one to do. Yeah, I really love that. These are Les Enseignes des Métiers. Apologies if you're French. That's about as good as my French accent can get. So these are motifs to illustrate jobs and pastimes of various kinds. I'm not sure when or why one would stitch those, and I probably won't. This is a sort of Twilled Joy inspired piece in the blues. Super pretty, and just that pretty framing with the swags and the flowers. Absolutely lovely. Girls in profile with hair. Profil et coiffure de demoiselle. De demoiselle. Okay, it's not my thing. One of them I think looks a bit like the Queen when she was young. Love. Pretty, pretty, pretty. And there's a, I'm not quite sure what this is. I think it's a sort of card that you could make it into. I'm not quite sure why it's that. And then charts and basic instructions that are not terribly clear in French. But, you know, if you know how to cross stitch, you know how to cross stitch, it's fine. There are tables at the back. One thing that's useful to know, if this is not how you are used to doing it, the comma is really a decimal point in those. So where it says 2,4, that really means 2.4, and everything is in centimetres rather than inches. So you've got 2.4 stitches per centimetre. You're going to have to do some sums to work that out in Ada. And then it tells you here how many strands of thread to stitch. Honestly, I think you probably have to work that out for yourself. I did a little bit of working out, and they are the sort of standard counts of linen, but yeah, you're going to want to do your maths or do your French and make sure that you've got that correctly done. And then at the back, the instructions for making the bag and the cushions and so on. I think I paid £17.50, including shipping, from Amazon. There's a lot of patterns in there, and a lot of them that are really, really unusual and beautiful and that I want to stitch. I'm just going to count up 3, 5, 10, 15, yeah, 20 patterns for £17.50. I think that's excellent in this beautiful hardback book. Which brings me on to the thinky thoughts that I've been having for this week. I haven't done proper thinky thoughts for a while, but I guess partly because National Needlework Market was happening and lots of people excited about new patterns and things coming out. And there was one thing that people have been talking about, which is an older Blackbird design book that had gone out of print and has now been reprinted. People are very excited about that. And I guess I was just sort of reflecting on pricing and availability of cross-stitch patterns, partly with respect to my experience having been an author. Well, I still am an author, but I used to write romance novels that were mostly only available digitally. There were 1 or 2 of them that were available in print copies in foreign translation, but in English they were available digitally. And the book market, the fiction book market, went through a huge revolution when digital publishing became a big thing. Huge revolution. It opened up self-publishing. It became very easy for people to sell books pretty cheaply and still maintain the same level of profit per item sold. People were reading a lot, and people who read a lot found that they were really enjoying reading digitally on Kindles or Nooks or other ebook readers. And so it really exploded. And the mainstream traditional publishing companies struggled a little bit to keep up with this. It was very easy for self-publishers and new publishing companies to take advantage of the new technology and be very agile with that and producing books very quickly and selling them really quite cheaply without having the burdens of the traditional model, which required quite a lot of upfront cost in getting everything printed and then distributed through, you know, sort of wholesale distribution channels that were fixed. It was very difficult to do direct selling to consumer of physical copies. And so it was all much more controlled by the industry. And they struggled to work out how to take advantage of new technology and how to do pricing with the new technology. So a book that you might previously have sold for, let's say, £7.99, you can interpret that as pounds or dollars or however you feel. But you might have sold it as that if it was sort of on sale in a bookstore or even, you know, at a supermarket, bookstore shelf, whatever, but in print. And you would make, probably the author would make maybe £1 per copy on that, something like that, maybe a bit more. But you could sell that book as the author online for £2.99 and still make £1 or more. And you haven't had to take the risk of deciding to print a whole lot of copies of which you might sell none, or which you might not sell. You might not have printed nearly enough, and so you've paid too much for them because you could have got the better rate if you printed more. And, you know, suddenly it was like, oh, but if we're selling, what if we're selling the same book in both places? Aren't we cannibalizing our own readership? You know, I want my people to pay $7.99 for it, particularly if you're the publisher who's invested in getting all of those printed. I don't want them to be able to get it for $2.99. So maybe what we should do is sell the ebook for $7.99 as well, or you know, $6.99, make it a little bit less. But you know, the reader's looking at that going, well, I know those two things don't cost you the same to make, and you're trying to sell them to me for the same amount. I don't think so. And it just strikes me that the cross-stitch publishing industry is in a little bit of that same place. It's actually very easy, like me, to be a self-published cross-stitch designer. I don't sell any print copies of my patterns. That's not quite true. I do sell the Christmas cards, and I do have plans maybe for some more cards coming later this year to sell at retreats. But I'm not planning that that'll be the main way I sell patterns. You can get print copies of Spinsterhood through Evertote, but you know, that's on Caroline. She has taken on the investment there of printing copies, and we'll post them out and deal with all of that. And then, you know, we have a deal about how much she will take and how much I will get paid for every one of those. But I still sell the PDF copy of that direct to consumer. And, you know, while there are fees selling on Etsy or Gumroad or wherever you choose to sell, or if you set up your own website, you still have to pay for the hosting and so on for that. It's not absolutely zero investment. It's also the case that most of the profit comes back to you as the creator. You know, you have to pay your taxes and all of those things, but you know, there isn't a middleman in the same way that there would be through a publisher. Now, if people are selling wholesale, and that's what's going on at Needlework Market, is there is a sort of third person. It's not the publisher, it is the local needlework shop or the online needlework shop, and they are taking their cut, and they have to pay their bills, they have to pay their staff, and you know, if they're in a retail space, you know, there's a lot of costs associated with that. But even if it's not a retail space, you know, you've still got to have space, and you've got to pay all of those bills and those kind of things. So selling stuff in print is a more expensive, riskier endeavour for everybody. Yeah, it just is. Now, that's not to say it's a bad thing. There's definitely still a market for print books. There's definitely still a market for print cross-stitch charts. A lot of people only stitch print cross-stitch charts. And, you know, clearly when something goes out of print that people still want to stitch, you know, they still want to stitch it. They want to be able to get hold of it. I guess the things that I'm having trouble understanding are, A, why there are still some cross-stitch patterns being produced that are not available in PDF format as well as print. To me, it is an absolute no-brainer. It takes you so little time and energy to upload your PDF. You can do it to your own website if you have a website, to Etsy if you want to, or Gumroad or some other service. It's a one-off thing to do. It does not take long. And then you literally just sit and collect the money every month. That's it. And it never goes out of print. And, you know, maybe you want to say, okay, but I'm nervous that would cannibalize my print sales, and I need to sell a certain amount of print copies to make it worth doing print copies. fine. Don't put your PDF up for the first 6 months or so. Have it as an exclusive print. People do that already with needlework markets. Some designers have market exclusives, and it doesn't mean that you'll only ever be able to get it through a shop that's been to market, but it means for the first few months the only way to get it is through a shop that has been to market and bought those copies, and then it will be available later. People do exclusives for other things, for club boxes or subscription boxes or retreats, and that's fine. I have no objection to that. I think that's a good business model. It makes sense. You raise some awareness of your pattern. The people who've got it are like, this is brilliant, I'm stitching it, it's going to be available to the public 6 months time. Great. But I do not understand the model that says we are never going to put things available to be purchased in PDF. I prefer to only stitch from my iPad. For my eyesight, that's better. For portability, for making sure I've got things with me when I need them, that's better. My whole setup works much better when I'm stitching from my iPad. I am stitching Jack Rabbit from the chart, and it's okay. It's a black and white chart. Mostly, it's actually not, now that I look at it, but you'd hardly know it. Like, this is what I have to do to look at it and read it properly. Yeah, I take that back. It's not a black and white chart, but the colour is pretty indistinguishable to me mostly. And the symbols, you know, I can tell the difference, but I have to be looking pretty carefully at it. I haven't yet, but I might get to the point where what I have to do is take a photo of this and then use it from my iPad where I can zoom in. And I have done that. I did not with Funky Bug, because that was printed really big, but I have done that with other patterns. It's quite annoying. I can do it, but it is quite annoying. I would just prefer to buy a PDF pattern and work from that. If you prefer a print pattern, obviously you can buy a PDF and print it out. There's nothing stopping you doing that. But it's harder, I think, if you've got a print pattern to convert that successfully to digital. Maybe you can. So yeah, I just think designers, having a PDF available means that your pattern is always available in perpetuity. You don't have to worry about if it's gone out of print, should we do another print run, and will enough people want it, and you can just say, well, the PDF is available, and if you'd rather have it printed, you can just print it. So there's that, and there's the people who just prefer to stitch PDF. And I think you can do something with pricing as well. People know that print things cost more to produce. So you could be selling your patterns for a bit less. And I think you would find that actually it's not cannibalizing your market, it's expanding your market. There's a lot of designers whose stuff I look at and I think, I really like that. I don't want to pay that much for it, and I also don't want the print pattern. Why would I pay more for a version that I like less? Weird. So if it were a little bit cheaper and it was available in PDF and I could do my impulse purchasing in the middle of the night, I would be much more likely to buy stuff. And I don't think I am the only person who feels like that. I think, some designers sell everything in PDF. Some designers do hybrid model, and some, it seems, only do print. And like I say, I find that baffling. I also think, and maybe this is just me being miserly and stingy, and I don't know whether my patterns are priced correctly or not. I don't know what the correct price is and what we mean by that. But I would say, I know that it took me a lot longer and a lot more work and a lot more creativity to write a book than it does to produce a cross-stitch pattern. Just is a lot more. And yet actually, the sort of amounts of money that cross-stitch patterns are being sold for is quite often more than a book. Now, obviously there's stuff around supply and demand, and I don't pretend to be an expert on the various market within that. I just wonder whether there's a bit more room for pile them high and sell them cheap, and a bit less room for make them super expensive, sell fewer. I don't know. I mean, you know, plenty of these people have been in the business for decades and they know what they're doing. But also the things are changing. And it's worth thinking about that, isn't it? When it's so easy for self-publishers, I mean, I guess everybody's sort of a self-publisher really, but you know what I mean? Hobbyists, let's call them that, hobbyists like me, to come along and set up an Etsy shop and start selling my designs. And, you know, there are so many out there, and there are so many really great patterns out there that are not ever going to be sold at a needlework market, that you might not ever find in an LNS, in a print copy, but actually, you know, are hitting a whole new market. Well, don't you want a piece of that? Don't you want a piece of that? Don't you want those people to be able to grab your designs now and in 10 years' time? I don't know. I would be really interested to know what your thoughts are on that. What is your sweet spot, perhaps, for paying for a pattern? Obviously, it varies. You know, you pay less. Well, I hope. Usually, I expect to pay less for a little small than I would for a huge sampler, but often the prices aren't that different, I don't think. Do you feel like you get good value for money from your purchasing? Do you feel sometimes like you're paying a bit more than you really want to, but also that's what it costs and that's what you end up paying for? Are there things that are out of print that you think, I'd love to be able to buy a PDF version of that? Let me know what you think. Also, if you think I'm charging too much for my patterns, tell me, and I'm definitely willing to reconsider on those. And who do you think is really great value? Maybe there's somebody you think, yeah, this designer always puts in extra patterns, more resources, better instructions. So it just feels really good value when you buy from them. I would be really interested to hear about that as well. I will be back hopefully in a couple of weeks' time, and hopefully I will have done a bit more stitching by then. Thanks so much for watching.